This is legislative advocacy roundtable. Eric is uh, our resident advocate here that's helping launch a program that we're really excited about. Um, some of the differences between what your regular, normal advocacy during your visits and your casework versus what legislative is kind of pretty much a system-based order of operations and regarding how we take some of the issues that we constantly see in our facilities, taking them to our state representatives as well as the federal ones to create some sort of laws to put in place or some sort of standards that need to be followed for these facilities in order for us to better provide a standard of living for our residents. Would that be a pretty good example of what that would be, Eric? Can you chime in on what?
You're asking me to chime in on the reason that we started the legislative advocacy?
Yeah, the definition, kind of what the differences are.
Sure, yeah.
We do it.
Yeah, so why we started doing the legislative advocacy project, Cindy and I have talked about it, I think I've spoken about it with Nancy as well, is that during the pandemic, it became patently apparent that we as ombudsmen could not on a micro level resolve staffing complaints. We did not have the control or the ability to do it. The staff simply weren't, and to a large extent are not there. And so when we had these staffing root cause complaints, and by the way, 90+% of the root cause for almost all of our complaints, at least in my humble opinion, can be traced back to staffing in some capacity. And so when it really became this rampant problem during the pandemic, we knew that we needed to kind of shift our focus because we couldn't solve it on a micro level. But of course, we can't just throw our hands in the air. And so that is what led to the Legislative Advocacy Project being born. It was the idea of the now Southern Ohio Veterans Ombudsman, Jimmy Gillespie. And I kind of picked it up and made it a thing with the interns, and these folks will be a part of that as well. And so what it is this, you guys: a cheat sheet, two kind of cheat sheets. One for applicable elected representatives for any given nursing home in R5 county area or assisted living facility, or theoretically RF2. So you would get your two, federal senators, you would get the applicable House of Representatives member for that particular district. And then from my perspective, just as importantly, you would receive state senator contact information and state House of Representatives members contact information as well, along with what amounts to sort of a guide about maximizing your impact when you're reaching out to your elected representatives. And then what we're really kind of growing at this point, as far as the maturation of the project, is a monitoring of bills in committees and subcommittees at both the state and federal, so you can see both my fingers there, level, so that when those things do come up, we can help you all or our consumers who are interested in the project sort of strike while the iron's hot. Because that really is part of the guidance, is that we're going to reach out to elected representatives to lobby them, so to speak, about a particular subject. The best time to do that is when there's something on the books or something being kind of bandied about, or during an election season. So that's kind of where we are at this point. So we have Morgan Boston, who's our MSW intern. She's going to do some of the monitoring of some bills in committee, and that's starting. Our lovely interns that you all just met here, along with their counterpart from Miami, will be helping me disseminate some of these because I'm continuing to sell it to folks. And as a by the by, if you don't mind here, Nick, I just want to give a plug here. If while you're out talking to your people at your facilities, an issue comes up that is related to staffing, whether it's a complaint or not, take that as a segue to pitch this project, because what we want ultimately is to be able to disseminate this to as many people as possible, who then disseminate it among their people, so that we can create, ideally, this sort of groundswell grassroots voice that is unignorable from a political perspective. So, and there's other things working. Anyway, I'm probably rambling at this point. Did I define that cohesively enough, Nick? Was that a good enough answer?
Yeah. I think probably more so than we needed, but
Yep. I'm good for that.
But that's good, because that kind of leads me into some of the things that I would like, some of the questions I have for you all in regards to that particular scenario. So if Norma, you have a question?
Yes. Oh, wait a minute. Yes. Eric, you said if we were at facilities and there were some kind of staffing related issue that we discovered, to tell who about what is the name of this? I didn't
Yes, ma'am.
catch.
Yeah, fair enough. And we can revisit later, but ultimately I would just want you to identify to that person or persons that this tool exists, and that if they are interested in receiving it and utilizing it, we would just need preferably an email address to send it to, but if they're not on board with email, we can send them a snail mail copy. So we would just need a physical address then.
Are you talking about residents or are you talking about staff?
Anyone who is interested, I will send this to. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that information, okay, Cindy, go ahead, chime in.
I have come from the other side of being a very dissatisfied family member, and I think legislation and the elected officials is the only way to go. I have a long career at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and quality is number one. We're number one in the country right now as far as pediatric institutions. I've done Ohio Department of Health, the Ohio Attorney General, the Ohio Board of Pharmacy, the Ohio Department of Health, the Ohio Board of, I've done all the places that you complain to, or not complain, but give feedback to, and nobody can do anything. So we have to get more robust in our reporting and just go to the legislatures and just just pound them with the concerns and issues and problems, in my opinion, my humble opinion.
Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate it. And part of that is reporting. I mean, part of that is what we see, the types of situations that happen, because the whole Otis system, what that does is it provides that information, it shows the trends that are happening, the things that we need to be looking out for. And Eric, can you speak to any of that with regards to how previous situation or previous reporting has led us to do this?
As far as our reporting?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, again, it just comes back to a root cause, and so it wasn't so much that we formalized every problem that led back to staffing during the pandemic, but it was as much as anything patently apparent, and so we started documenting staffing complaints, and then what we would do is we would resolve them by educating folks about this legislative advocacy project. And then what that will do, at least ideally, I think, is it tells our state office and the stakeholders for the state office when they give these reports that this is something that's happening. This is a repeat occurrence. That's what you were asking me, right? Is how the documentation leads
based
to,
off
yep.
of the information that we are collecting, we're seeing how this could be the root cause, right? Obviously, and the main goal the main objective obviously is to put legislation in place that will put requirements. What is the requirement right now? That's the question that I think we all should probably asking right now. What requirements are in place?
Is that a me question or is that a general question?
General, that's a question to you. What is the staffing requirement right now?
It's pretty soft. It doesn't really exist. The way that the federal statute is written is very, very vague. I'm not going to be able to give it like a verbatim recounting here, but it's something to the effect of, facilities will staff in a manner that allows them to meet the acuity needs of their residents. There isn't really a hard ratio or number. The sort of soft number that these places tend to shoot for, in my experience, is about 2.5 hours per day of licensed staff contact. So a CNA, an LPN, an RN, that level of contact. What the national consumer voice, which of course is the nationwide sort of ombudsman advocacy group, recommends and has since 2011 is 4.1 hours per day per resident. So you can see that disparity over an hour and a half that gets shorted even at the top end of what most of these places are shooting at. And if it's okay, Nick, I'll tell you a little anecdote that I told you yesterday about one of my facilities in
Sure.
Claremont County and sort of coming in as the newly assigned ombudsman. And this administrator made a point to show me that their staffing ratio for that day was 3.2, and she was pumped and proud about that. So that there is your sort of real life examination about what we're dealing with. That's relatively speaking, that's probably about the best that we're getting in terms of a staffing ratio, and still is not enough.
Sure. Cindy, you have a question?
Yes, it's not only the number of staff like warm bodies, it's the level of staff. These organizations don't want to spend the money on RNs, and they need more of them, in my opinion, 24 hours a day, at least 2, so everybody's making money at the top, and then people receiving the care are the ones that are suffering as a result of, a medication aid is documenting falsely the medications given. The nurses are so busy doling out the meds that nobody even recognizes it. And me, the family member, has to recognize a huge medical error of omission of a medication, a seizure medication, critical to my sister, being not given for a month. So it's like we need more RNs, and they don't want to pay for them, but that's just the way it's going to have to go. We have to keep fighting and getting more RNs in there.
Gotcha. Thanks, Cindy.
Nick, may I ask a question?
Yeah,
May
go
I
ahead,
ask a
Jill.
question?
You may.
Eric, is this going to be sent to us via email? Are we going to written? I think it would help clarify your expectations about what we're sharing with our facilities if you tell us in writing.
Oh, you mean with regards to the contact information to our
Yes.
legislative
Yes,
reps?
please.
Well, who am I talking to?
You're talking to Jill.
Oh, hey, Jill.
Jill
Hey,
Crawford.
listen, Jill, if you want the project, I'll just put you on the list and we can distribute it to you, and then you can have it there.
Oh,
Um,
Eric, you must wait. We're cutting out. You're cutting out.
what
I
I'm saying.
just want to be able to share the information at Lincoln Crawford. My hands down as far as volunteering for anything else.
Well, okay.
But nice try.
What I'm offering you, Jill, is the actual project, because that's the only thing that I have that's in writing. And so if you want,
Okay.
a version of the project as it pertains to Lincoln Crawford, I'm happy to provide that to you. And then you are
Okay.
welcome to take that and disseminate it to anybody that you come into contact at Lincoln Crawford. Absolutely.
Well,
you want me to put your name on the
isn't
list?
Okay. Well, isn't that what you're asking all of us to do?
I'm asking you to pitch the project and get some
Right.
emails so that we can disseminate it. But
Okay.
if you want to just have it to disseminate on your own, Miss Croswell, I'm on board with that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can do that as far as the facility I serve. Yeah.
Why don't you and I have a phone conversation afterwards, because there's a couple other pieces of this project that I want to make sure that we're on the same page about, but I don't want to derail this. So let me put you down
Okay.
here. I'm gonna give you a call later today. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. Thanks, Eric.
Yes, ma'am.
And the number that you called into, Jill, is the correct one, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that number there, Eric, is Jill's number.
Yep, I got Jill. She used to be stuck with me.
We
Norma,
survived.
she's got two hands up.
Excuse me, I don't know if this is related to what she was just asking, but
Sure.
I'm a volunteer. I'm a fairly new volunteer. I get what you're trying to do with this, but I don't know how to disseminate this. I don't know what it's called, to be able to promote it. So is there some way you can email that kind of information so that we have something to refer to if we find a time to do it or a need to do it?
Yeah, I'm happy to give you like a synopsis of what it is. And if you want, maybe you and me and Jill can talk. Can I just conference you in with Jill later and we can hash it out together?
Yes, that would be fine. I
think
don't
the-
know, is there anybody else here that is in
Well,
this same?
the other thing, Norma, is I think we're going to cover a lot of this. That's partly why we're meeting here. And so if we want to talk about specifics about how you want to handle it, that's perfectly fine. But I think Nick and I are going to answer a lot of these questions kind of as we
Okay.
go forward here.
Okay,
So the questions that I was going to bring up, Cindy, do you have one thing to chime in?
Yes, I have been involved in a lot of advocacy over the years in my nursing career, and all the groups that I belong to, we do a template, and we create and maybe some of the interns can embrace this project, but we have a computer. They have a computer program they send to people. You pick your representative. There's a formatted letter, and they just have to do a few clicks, and then they can do their personalized concern or issue or struggle and then sign their name. And it makes it so easy because there's so many nuances around contacting, the representatives. But, our National Association of Nurse Practitioners, they have one, Ohio Association of Nurse Practitioners, all these advocacy groups will, send me things all the time. And it's like, okay, I believe in X, I believe in Y. And I just have to do a few clicks and then send it, sign it, and then it goes to Winstrup and Rob Portman and, all the people that are in my, reporting area. So I don't know if anybody has the bandwidth to do something like that, but to be able to have a spot on the Pro Seniors website to contact your representative and then, figure out who it is by putting in your address and then have a template of the concerns, struggles, etc., and then be able to sign it and then be done. Because snail mail after 9/11 is just unbelievably hard to get to people, and phone calls aren't as easy, aren't that easy either. But emails are very functional as far as getting information to the aides for the representatives.
Thank you, Cindy. And I think what people are trying to get at, Eric, is similar to what she was saying. Is there like how would we use this information when we come across somebody who potentially has issues with staffing at a facility?
Sure. So the way that I've done it, sort of over the years now, is when it comes up, and it will obviously organically in conversation, and you can trace it back to something related to staffing, or even if you don't explicitly in the conversation trace it back to, well, this is because of staffing. You make that, you contrive it. Okay, well, listen, one of the reasons that call lights go for 2 hours in the middle of the night without being answered is because they run a skeleton crew. And we all know, of course, that's universally true pretty much anywhere. And that is always my segue to say, this is how we could work on your call light issue. And these are the things that I would suggest, the same thing that you've all been, trained and probably done. And you say, however, it's my experience that these are the sorts of things that will continue to cycle back around. It becomes a circular issue. We can solve it, but it's something that's going to pop its head back up until there is staffing requirements or there's more robust and, to Cindy's point earlier, better trained staffing. We will have these sorts of problems. And to that end, consumer, this person I'm speaking to, we've developed a tool to help amplify our voice and the fact that as constituents and voters, we want our politicians to pay attention to this. The tool is a cheat sheet to reach out to these elected representatives, along with guidance about how best to maximize that impact. And then, you can say it in your own way. It's your own script, but that is what we're doing. It's the segue from the moment where something's brought up that has staffing as a root cause, or at least potentially can have staffing as a root cause. You tell them that the project is something that we made as a tool for constituents to exercise their voice with their elected representatives, and that if anyone is interested, we would simply need preferably an email address, but at least an address so that we can snail mail that to them if that's how they want to utilize the project. The other thing that I guess is worth saying, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, is we will plan on redistributions of this project after updates. So like after next year's presidential election, we will, of course, update all elected representative contact information because some of them may be new. And then the same thing with midterm elections, things of that nature. But the pitch comes when it comes up organically in conversation and you're simply telling them, hey, we know that staffing is a problem. You're experiencing staffing as a problem. Again, here's how we would try and deal with it on a micro level. It's our experience that this is going to require a macro level advocacy because these are the sorts of things that continue to pop up. Did that answer any of your questions any better, Norma?
Yes, thank you. I don't really need to be on your call then, because
Okay,
that was
good,
very well
fair enough. Yes, ma'am.
explained.
Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So the overall theme that you would impart with with these volunteers is that they want to cross this with a resident, a staff, or a family member, get their information to then pass along to you, and you can do the legwork in order to give them all that information, correct?
Exactly. So like if I use Norma as the example, if Norma's got a few people that are interested, she's simply collecting names and email addresses, emailing me and you, and then we will make these folks send it out. Pretty much is the way that that's going to work. Yep.
So something to take with you all is when you do run into those things and you are reporting, potentially, I mean, anytime you're going to use the phrase staffing issue, it's going to be a red light to myself. And what that'll cue me to do is not just send it to your staff ombudsman, your report, but I can also send that to Eric as well. Does that make sense? And if you do receive an email, contact, put that in your report notes so that way we can distribute that information to Eric as well. Now let me ask you all this. Based on your visits, the ones that you've been on, that are going to be on, what are some telltale signs that there may be some staffing issues in your facilities? Because not all of them are black and white, but some of them are pretty obvious. And we just want to get a collection of some of those things that you have observed. Feel free to chime in.
Medication not given on time.
Yeah, definitely.
People not
The
being
fact that
helped
I'm
to the
hearing
bathroom
from
on
multiple
time.
people that something isn't done and they relate it to staffing. I mean, multiple.
So it's basic trends of care. Monica, do you have something?
I was just going to say, I've noticed a lot of people will comment that they can't be helped to the bathroom on time.
Yeah.
I've
Absolutely.
noticed that that people say that they're in the self-care part of the wing. Now, granted, they're 98, but they're, very sharp capacity wise and they can do things, but they still need more attention than they're getting.
Yeah, yeah. General observations, when you, any specific ones that maybe not more so than just a resident speaking up, but something maybe you observe?
I want to
You
say
don't
I
see
see
anybody.
dignity. I'm sorry. You go ahead. Whoever's talking, I'll shut up.
No, this is Cindy. I just said you just don't see anybody around at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Call lights unanswered, multiple.
Is that
I
your
was
bill?
gonna, yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna say dignity and respect is one that plays in typically as well, and I want to point it out because it's not always something I think people relate to staffing, and the specific things that come up that I see as related to dignity and respect would be staff that complain about how many hallways they have to cover. And the reason, just so that you all are aware, the reason I view that as a dignity and respect problem is because we're taking, not only is that not really a resident's business is not the right word, but we're not trying to transfer anxiety onto a resident. The resident has no ability to control what the staffing is. And so if you're going in and you're griping about how few staff there are, all we're doing is serving to cause anxiety for a resident. But even just straight dignity and respect, meaning the things that you see and hear about where a staff is rough or just downright rude or condescending, they're very often because that staff member is stretched out super thin. They've worked 312s in the last 4 days. And picked up another shift, and they got folks who are sitting there on their phones doing nothing. And on top of it, they've got to do the actual job, which is a hard job. So that I wanted to make sure that I point out because I do think that those are related to numbers and quality of staff as well.
I agree, Eric. This is Cindy. The thing is, you're not supposed to admit that you are short-staffed, but you'll hear the aides and the nurses talk about being short-staffed, and that is like a red flag in the hospital, and it should be a red flag in the, as far as litigation. But you will have them sometimes say,
Oh, you're breaking up, Cindy.
"Oh, well, I'm the only one here. Somebody said they didn't have there." Da 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 da.
Norma?
Excuse me, yesterday as an example, I visited and I went into this one room and this was in the memory impaired area, memory care. And this lady was falling half out of the bed. I don't know how long she had been there like that, but she couldn't get herself back up. I had to go find somebody to get her back up, which makes me think,
I was finished. I was just saying,
that the staff had not been in that room or near that room very recently.
That's unfortunate.
and she probably couldn't reach her call. Like,
Cindy, you're breaking up. You're going in and out. Sorry, we can't hear you. Does anyone have anything else to chime in on? Yeah. So ultimately, a lot of what Eric was saying is a lot of these complaints, these things that we're observing or seeing in the facilities can go 99% of the time. The root cause can be because of staffing, and that's the overall theme of what I want you guys to understand. The takeaway here is that there is, just because we see these circle trends continuing to happen, recycle in our facilities, and we have recurring problems. Doesn't mean that there's no end in sight. There's no way that we can't take it to that next advocacy level. So the important thing to remember is that when you do come across maybe somebody who is very passionate about their situation, including the family members, and that they are willing to provide some more feedback with regards to specific problems that relate to staffing issues. Getting that information for us is extremely important for us to not only obviously try to solve the problem if we can within the confines of our ombudsman role, but also to use that as a resource to give to our legislative team here to help with this project. Would you say that is basically the key point here, Eric?
Yes, we want your help. Because
Okay,
again, we want to.
I'm sorry, this is actually in effect now.
The project exists now. Yes, ma'am. There is a fairly small distribution list, I think, of the ones that didn't come back, maybe 55 or so consumers that received this project. I've got 20 or so more that need to be entered into our system and have them disseminated. So that's another task that I'll give to these young ladies over here at some point in the near future. And then again, what we want is to have not only these, 75 or so that we regularly distribute, we want to grow it to 150 and 250. And then of course there's the whole shadow effect, because the other thing I want you to tell these folks when you're pitching this and getting a commitment, to receive it at least, is share it with whoever you want to. And that also reminds me, another piece that I want you all to be able to say, or that I want you to say, is, we want you to use this for staffing. That's why we created it. However, this is a tool that obviously has some transferable use to it. So if you have a philosophy or a political thing that you want to lobby your elected representatives about, please feel free to do that, and please spread it as far and wide as you want to. Anyway, yes, yeah, we do. We want your help, and we want it to be a distribution list of 850 or more,
Mm-hmm. I have a question regarding that, Eric. At what point does would you say things get done with regards to that specific advocacy? I've never been part of legislative advocacy of any sort.
Yeah, me neither. So we're kind of figuring out together. So what we did is I sort of went out and hooked the first 50 or 70 or 60 rather, and just kind of created a list. Worked with Linda. She made a constant contact, sort of a distribution list for us, and then I had the interns last year sort of create this database of elected representatives. That was a lot of the footwork. Was pinpointing each facility and each district. And then what we did is we just kind of picked a time last year. I think it was, I don't remember when we sent it out, Nick, but we I think aimed initially for September, and then it ended up being like late October or something like that. So our plan for distribution would be regular, again, after midterms, after election years, because we got new people coming in, and then other opportune times like a new bill coming out, you know what I mean? Or it could be maybe, and this is where it's still in an infancy, when we're talking about monitoring these subcommittee bills, it may not be that we send the whole project back out. We simply would send sort of a reminder or a tickle that says, hey, this bill's in subcommittee, good time to reach out to Brad Wenstrup or whatever. But as far as the regularity of it, I'm picturing sort of in every other year, midterms and presidential elections, we'll update them and redistribute them. But for now, it's just a matter of kind of getting it up and running and continuing to collect, names and consumers that we can give this to. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Norma, do you have something to?
What about residents that say, I don't know about this, I'm afraid I'll be in trouble?
So you're talking about retaliation at that point. Yeah. So, obviously validate that, certainly. Talk to them about their right to be free from reprisal. And then the other thing that I would say in that moment, two things, I guess. One, I haven't had a resident say that to me. They've not mentioned, obviously it comes up regularly. Residents are worried about, well, what's going to happen if I, say this or whatever. But I've not heard it about the legislative advocacy project. And what I would say is, this is not something that would require me to reveal your identity to the administration. This has nothing to do with them. Even, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if it does become a formal complaint, the legislative advocacy project is a resolution in and of itself. And so if you're dealing with a staffing complaint, if that's what it is, obviously kick it to your staff ombudsman, but also understand that you offering that legislative advocacy project is in and of itself a resolution to that, on top of whatever micro things you and your ombudsman do there. Yes, ma'am, Lexi.
Great point.
So this tool has all the contact info of the representatives. Is there like a template or any way of instructing the residents, like how to initiate this, like email they're sending or what they do?
So yes, ma'am. So right now, what we have is kind of a synopsis, a guide to maximizing your impact when you're reaching your elected representatives. And so that's kind of what I think you're referencing there, Lexi. But it also reminds me of something that Cindy was mentioning before, which is sort of the creation of a super simple, easy to fill in template. And I would love to work towards that. But right now what we have is, here's your elected representative, here's your elected representatives, here's the guide sheet on how to maximize your impact with them. That's what it is right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I'm a little confused. So I thought we were collecting the emails to give to you, and
That's correct.
that was the extent of the resident or staff's involvement. But it sounds like just now, like you were saying, they're in contact with. No?
No. You have it all right. It's just that they would be the ones contacting the elected representatives. You're bringing us the people that are interested. We distribute it to those people, and then they reach out to their elected representatives.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
This would be a great tool to potential resident council presidents. This is a great tool to have for resident council meetings when they're sitting down talking about the systematic issues that they're facing. Because a lot of, at least from the council meetings I've been a part of, staffing, all the residents seem to have a full knowledge that there is short staffing. So, and you know, it's not necessarily the current staff's fault. That is, it just isn't. It's a much bigger problem, more so than the administration. I mean, it is a huge problem that just needs a voice amplified, right?
Yeah,
And
you're
so when we
absolutely
talk,
right.
and so we're not talking necessarily about to any specific individual problem or person that's the cause of the problem. We're talking about the overall problem itself. So when you're sharing that information with residents or family members, like, no, this isn't, we're not pointing fingers to specifically to these people that, you know, because the blame is overarching. It's how the system's working right now, because it's not.
Yeah,
It's
you said it.
defunct.
It's a systemic problem. That's right.
It's
Yeah.
defunct. Yeah.
Not to sound like I'm not getting it, because I don't think I'm getting it all. Is there just a piece of paper with words on paper that we can use when we talk to people in the nursing homes, the residents, of what we are actually presenting to them? Because to me, it's kind of all up
Oh,
in the air right now. Just an
like a
exact
brochure of
thing.
some sort, right, Monica? Is that what you're thinking? Like a
Yeah, I just
brochure
want something I can actually say now.
or?
This is what this is, and this is how we use it. You know, otherwise it's not clear really how to get going with this.
Well, because we're in the initial stages, I mean, Eric's obviously writing that down because that's pretty good. That's a good idea. The initial stages is just really getting that first wave of information out to people and collecting their names. This thing will start to get some more legs on it, right? And then more, you know, brainstorm more ideas like the ones that we're talking about with a brochure of something can then eventually really amplify this project moving forward. Would you agree, Eric?
Yeah, I would love to have something that you could just hand out. Right now, you hit the nail on the head. We don't have that. So what you're gonna have to work with is sort of a verbal sales pitch. You know, again, segue from an organic conversation that has to do with an issue related to staffing, and all you need to do is say, we created a tool so that you can lobby or reach out to your elected representatives to let them know how you feel about this. That's really what it is in a nutshell. You don't have to go into a bunch of detail. Hey, we have a tool if you ever wanted to contact your elected representatives to let them know that you think nursing home and assisted living staffing is a major problem. You don't really have to say much more than that. We just want you to know kind of what it is. So you don't have to get too bogged down in the details for now. And then, yes, I did in fact write that down because I would love to have something that I could just hand to people, because it's laborious to I can say this historically, it is. It turns what's already a tough conversation or, you know, an unpleasant conversation into very often another 5-7 minute conversation about what the heck this project actually is. But again, you can keep it pretty simple. Do you want to contact your elected representative about this? Okay, we have a tool to do that. How about you give me an email and we'll go ahead and send it out to you. Does that help you kind of talk about it, Monica?
A little bit more, yes. Thank you.
And I just wanted to clarify with you all. You know, this is new to me too. I'm obviously brand new to this whole program in general. But part of what being an ombudsman is finding solutions, you know, for these problems. And if the solution is overarching, like what we're trying to do with this legislative advocacy, then that's what we do. That's why, you know, these are important conversations, not only for us to share what we're doing, but to also get your personal feedback on what you've been, you know, exposed to and how we can best grow the project from the inside out. Does that make sense? So not only is this a roundtable, I mean, this is a roundtable. It's not just meant for you to hear what you can be doing and the information that you can be sharing with the residents, but this is also us, you know, kind of getting an idea from you how we could probably best communicate that information to the resident. So the plan will be for me to send out to all the volunteers your contact information, Eric, and maybe a little bit of an overview. Maybe I'll take the synopsis, right, and put that in there about what it is, and they can have it on record in their email. And if they come across someone, this is before we get any kind of pamphlet or brochure, but just something to signal them in their brain when they're talking to a resident. Oh, this sounds like a good candidate for someone who could advocate for us legislatively for the staffing, right? And obviously that will require somebody with, some pretty strong capacity. And but we have a lot of great voices in these providers in these facilities that can be that want something to be done and have a strong voice and opinion to do so. So let's give them that empowerment, just like we would empower them if we were there right in front of them, right? We want that tool, let them speak up. Any questions before we take off? Anything that you have pressing? Go ahead.
This
Nick,
is-
this is Cindy. I just had one more. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that everyone gets that point. The people that represent us, if they don't have personal experience with people in extended care facilities or whatever type of facilities we're attending to, they don't have the details. But if they have stories, they love stories. So individual stories from all these sweet people that we see are very powerful and impactful for legislators, because they will just recycle them and use them in different venues to show that they are in contact with their constituents.
Yeah, that's a great comment there. I'll come to you, Norma. Nancy, you had something to say.
Yes, when you increase staffing, you increase your costs. Is there any discussion about Medicaid reimbursement changing to cover, if you have to staff up, who's paying for it?
Well, I'm gonna answer that, Nick. Nancy, what I will tell you is that while the reimbursement is probably something that should be looked at, what I know from doing this is that if a place wants to be, even in today's context, if you want to be staffed relatively well, they can. This is about the allocation of your resources, not about all these facilities being cash poor, like I know the place that we advocate together wants to claim. So we would leave that separately. It is absolutely a valid point. It is absolutely a counterpoint from a facility perspective. Of course, I don't remember whether or not you were at the task force meeting in March where the one administrator got up and said that exactly. Well, we need more money. We're looking at Tiffany like this guy. Because it's about an allocation of resources. I swear it is, because there's plenty of for-profit nursing facilities that run a better show than the place that like you and I advocate at, Nancy. So while it is valid and should be looked at, it will not be a part of what our advocacy is. But you are in fact correct. Staffing is the most important or the most costly thing. And it is, of course, what they want to cut costs on. And it also highlights one thing that I want all of you volunteers to hear. And that is part of why these staffing issues are so difficult for us to resolve on a micro level, is because staffing decisions in the budget are made typically at the corporate level. We have no jurisdiction at the corporate level, and I can't pierce that silo. And so this is less about worrying about the counterpoints that, yes, they are going to come down the pipeline, and more about we just need to give our folks a tool to leverage their position as constituents in the meantime. And then the chips will fall where they may. There's also counterpoints about the fact that it's not about a single ratio, and you can't do a single ratio. There's too much involved to be able to do that. And that's all pretty valid. So I don't know what the exact solution is. We just know it's got to be something more robust than what we have right now, which is, and since we can't pierce that corporate silo, this is what we're left with.
Great. Norma, you had one thing before we
Yeah, as we're talking to residents and explaining that this is a way to talk to their legislative representatives, they could be telling about staffing specifically at their facility, or they could be addressing staffing at large, that it seems to be a problem. Either way, so they know what they can do with this. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm gonna tell you a little story real quick before I sign off here with you guys. Staffing is the root cause of pretty much everything that we're dealing with in these facilities. This happened earlier this morning. I got a phone call from my wife. Her grandmother passed away in a nursing home. She passed away from COVID. There were clear signs that there were issues popping up in this facility, and but the residents were not made aware. My mother-in-law went there and saw that massive red flags of staffing not being of being a massive issue. Obviously, she's aware and self-aware that the industry at large is just broken because of staffing. And someone like my former great grandmother from on my wife's side is one of the reasons why we need this change to happen. People need to have immediate access to care if there's a major issue, and it's not just for the residents, it's for the current staff. We need to make sure that they're provided, they're being given the right tools and right means to do the job that they feel called to do, because this is a difficult field, and I do not I could not see myself trying to be an administrator this day and age, with the staffing issues that are going on. But without your advocacy, without us sharing with people that they have a voice, and their voice needs to be amplified through this project of legislative advocacy about the staffing issue, nothing can be resolved from the overarching thing. Would you say so, Eric?
Systemic problems require systemic solutions.
Yep.
That's where we are. And it's also nice to sort of speak optimistically here. You got stuff coming out from the Biden administration, and there are some things in the works in the state of Ohio, and so I think it's gotten attention. And this is a good time for us to continue to ensure that it continues to receive that attention until it's addressed in a way that Nick and I don't have jobs in it. No, but at least that's even better.
Yeah, we have jobs for a reason for that, and you guys are volunteers for a reason. So just remember that. Well, thank you all for coming out today. Thank you for your ears, but also the comments you've opened up here. Like I said, this is a ongoing project. This is something that we're all kind of learning as we go along, and it's very beneficial for us all here from different perspectives. As well as Eric and these interns who are going to be doing a lot of the legwork. So thank you for participating in that. And again, once you are out in the field, if you come across somebody, take out an email or contact information and put it in your report saying staffing issues, would like to be part of that legislative advocacy, and we will get that information to them. Okay. Now stay tuned for Wednesday evening or peer-to-peer, 6:30. If you can make it, I sent out everybody a link. So if you can, we'll be discussing some communication issues with regards to myself and you all, and how we can bridge that gap, as well as any of the other things that you guys are dealing with right now currently in your facilities. Okay.
Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.